Today the weather in Belgium is pretty great, but as a photographer living here, you can't really rely on that. Especially in the first few months of the year. Rainy days, grey skies, no light, but isn't that the beauty of photography, that you work with what you get? And that's exactly what I did a few days ago. Enjoy!
It's a very great day today. So that means not a lot of light and not a lot of contrast. But today I am searching for only reds in my pictures. So that gives me some pop of color. And yeah, I hope I find something good. And I hope I come home with a few nice pictures.
Today I decided to go on a color hunt. I loaded my camera with a roll of Kodak Gold 200 and headed out into the city looking for one specific thing: red. I started in a small park where I noticed some red garbage lying on the ground. There was also a pigeon nearby, clearly interested in it. It felt like a good frame to start with, just something simple to warm up. The image itself was a bit flat though, so I tried to think about how I could improve the composition. The next frame worked a little better. The red garbage in the foreground, the pigeon just behind it, and a few people in the background, adding another layer. Of course, these aren't the greatest photographs, but they're a good way to start the day. A little further down the street, a red traffic light caught my eye. Since I had to wait for the light to turn green anyway, I thought it might be a good moment to take a photo. What you can see is a cyclist had just stopped next to me, wearing a bright red hat. When the light finally turned green, she took off, and I managed to capture her together with the red traffic sign. I really like this photograph. And I was actually a little proud of myself. I had taken the picture from quite close to my subject. Normally that can feel a little bit uncomfortable, but somehow it felt easier this time. Maybe because I was focusing on colors rather than on the people themselves. This next photo doesn't really tell much of a story, but well, it's red. Further along my walk, I spotted a garbage container with a red lid, but I decided not to take the photo. When you're shooting film, you have to be a little careful with your frames, so I saved the shot for something more interesting. The next image might be a bit cliché. A red mailbox with a beautiful building in the background, but red is red, and I was on a color hunt. So I took the shot. And actually, it turned out pretty nice. A bit further along, I found this glass wall with some red safety bollards in front of it. I liked the reflections immediately, but I waited a little longer until a cyclist passed by in the reflection, wearing something red. I enjoy hiding these small details in my photos. Back in the city center, I noticed a shop window displaying a Pinocchio doll. It felt like a charming little scene, so I took a photograph. And it worked quite well. Not long after the Pinocchio scene, I came across a reddish bicycle lane. So I waited for a cyclist to pass through the frame. And luck was by my side, because she was wearing bright red socks. In this picture you can see some red traffic lights in a pattern. Nothing too special in my opinion. But the hunt continued. And then, quite unexpectedly, I stumbled upon a market. Markets are wonderful places for color, so naturally I decided to explore. By the way, for those who are interested, I was shooting on a Leica M4P with a 35 Voigtlander Nokton 1.4 lens. But the technical stuff aside, the first thing that caught my eye on the market were these beautiful red flowers. Then I noticed watermelons. They gave a really nice pop of red. I framed them in the foreground and waited for someone to pass by wearing something red. And eventually a lady walked into the frame with a red basket. At one point I looked down towards the street below, hoping to find a red traffic sign. When you're standing a little higher, you can sometimes hide someone's head behind the sign. But unfortunately, there wasn't one. So instead, I took a simple atmospheric shot of a red market tent with a staircase in the foreground. A woman wearing a red coat ordering something at a stall. A man selling red tomatoes. It's a shame we can't quite see what he's holding in his hand. Here's a small close-up of some boxes, which is actually quite funny because the colors black, yellow and red happen to be the colors of the Belgian flag. In the distance I spotted someone with a red umbrella. A lovely little scene. There was even someone else standing in the frame wearing a red sweater. I wanted to take another photograph of the person with the umbrella, but there were some people standing in the way. Honestly, I don't mind it at all. If people don't react to you, it usually means you've become invisible. And as a street photographer, being invisible is a wonderful thing. In fact, I think this second photo of the umbrella turned out even better than the first one. At one point someone walked past wearing a red coat and carrying flowers. But unfortunately, she turned around just as I took the photo. Maybe next time I should ask for a refund on the wasted film. And here comes a lady with a red bag. And here's a man carefully putting his belongings into his red bag. A small close-up of a can of Coca-Cola. There was also a market stall shaped like a lighthouse, painted in red and white. I thought it might be interesting to photograph it from behind the stand and wait for someone dressed in red to pass through the frame. This first image is already quite nice, but I wondered if it might be even better if we could see the person's face. So I waited a little longer. And I prefer this one. You can see a face, but you can also see more of the lighthouse structure in this frame. At another stall selling Asian food, I noticed something interesting. A red sign perfectly covering a customer's face. I love these little visual oddities like this. So far, this might actually be my favorite photograph of the day. For the next frame, I honestly have no idea what I was thinking. I suppose I briefly forgot about the color hunt. But I still think it's a nice photograph. On my way out of the market, I took one more shot of a fruit stand selling red apples. Once I left the market behind, I took an image that also became one of my favorites. I wanted the red sign to stay sharp, but the people walking past it to appear blurred. So I slowed my shutter speed down to 1/30th of a second. Ideally, I would have liked to go to 1/15th, but I didn't have an ND filter with me. Still, the shot turned out really well in my opinion. But on the contrary, the next photo didn't quite work. I saw someone with a red backpack and another person in the background wearing a red coat. But in my rush to capture the moment, I moved the camera a little too much. For this shot with the fences, I waited until someone walked past with a red suitcase. But I pressed the shutter just a bit too early. It would have been better if the person had already passed the fences. Still, I like to show all of my photographs, not just the best ones. In the next frame, I try to include 3 red accents: the man with the red jacket, the fences, and the traffic sign. This was another interesting moment. It was very windy that day, and some terrace chairs had been blown over. Luckily for me, they were red, and the pigeon really completes the scene in my opinion. Now I wanted to experiment with reflections. I noticed some red letters on a window, so I focused quite close on the text. Then I waited for someone to pass in the background wearing something red. You can barely see it, but it's a small detail. In another shop window, I saw a pair of red shoes. I tried to combine them with the reflection of a red neon sign from across the street. And just like that, we arrive at the final photograph of the day. A red neon sign that reads Antwerp, the city where I spent the day shooting. And honestly, I'm really happy with the results. Time to rewind the film and call it a day. Once home, after developing the roll of film, I selected my 3 favorite images and, as usual, made prints of them. That was it for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you liked it. If you liked this video, please leave a thumb up or subscribe to my channel or leave something in the comment section below. And I see you in the next one. Bye!